It's 2003. Hollywood is dominated by mega-budget blockbusters. Lord of the Rings is sweeping the Oscars, and new directors are fighting to get their break. And somewhere in all that chaos, there's a mysterious man with a strange accent, a fortune nobody can trace, and a script every studio has laughed out the roof. His name is Tommy Wiseau, and after sinking $6 million of his own money into a film he wrote, directed, and played the lead role in, he has just watched hundreds walk out of his premiere laughing due to his work of art being catastrophically bad. Yet somehow this would lead to one of the weirdest rises in Hollywood history. So how did we even get here? How does someone go from being rejected by every studio to having his self-produced calamity of a movie studied in universities? And how did the disastrous on-set experience become its own Oscar-nominated film? Well, to understand that, you have to realize just how little anyone even knows about this guy in the first place.
You are, what, 36, 37 years old?
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
Although Wiseau is definitely not in his 30s, lying and changing the story surrounding his past has been a common theme since his introduction to the media.
So were you born there?
No.
Where were you born?
Move on, next question.
It's a mystery.
We don't know where he's from. We don't know how old he is. We don't know where he got his money from.
However, what we do know is somehow and some way, Tommy found himself in San Francisco, California, on a mission to live the American dream.
People don't understand me, you know, I'm American. Yes, I'm American with accent, so what beat me. Everything is possible. So live in America.
And this goal would surprisingly come true. But not with a film.
I started my own business, basically.
Street Fashions USA?
Yes. No,
Everything,
retail store, the real estate, etc.
I used to have retail stores, right? Levi's, for example.
You see, Tommy had been gifted with a mindset of just knowing how to succeed with a business without really knowing why. Maybe it was his determination to never give up, or his extremely unique view on the world. We don't really know.
I think it was retail or real estate, and they're like, but how did that happen? I'm like, I don't know. It's probably better just to not know.
Yeah. But spending years working and succeeding in traditional business made Wiseau realize something. He needed a career change.
I love acting, you know.
My plan is to make a lot of movies, many movies, and make some projects for TV.
Well, that is definitely a switch up. While most who start up successful companies look to invest their fortunes in more businesses or other profitable projects, Tommy wanted to do something more creative. Therefore, the now aspiring actor enrolled in some drama classes, a decision that would change his life forever.
I mean, nobody in the class really got him at the point. I was all in. I was like the first fan. And then we would talk on the phone for hours.
Wiseau had not only been loving his performing lessons, but he had finally met someone who understood him, Greg Sestero.
Yeah, I mean, I did admire his passion in the acting class that he would argue with the teacher.
Do film school teachers know what they're talking about?
99% no.
You know, obviously he looks, you know, he's got a like Pirates of the Caribbean look going on there, Halloween costume.
To put things into perspective, the pair instantly clicked due to their goals being almost the same. Sestero had just moved back to America after a successful modeling career with Armani in Milan to pursue his true passion, acting. No, sadly, it wasn't starting a Levi's company. However, just as the duo was starting to deepen their friendship, a major issue was just around the corner. As with the dramatic sessions quickly nearing an end, the pair had a decision to make. Do they go their separate ways, or use what they had learnt, or not learnt,
99% no.
from these classes and build a career together? Well, for Wiseau, only one of them outcomes existed.
And then we had this like bromance for like 10 days. And then he's like, look, you know, class is over. So what do? You want to be an actor? You don't want to be an actor. And I was like, yeah, I want to move to LA, but it's not easy. I mean, you know, it's like you come down here, it's a new place. Where are you going to live? He's like, I have an apartment in Los Angeles, empty. You know, you can rent, charge you $200. And he was almost like the key to go to LA. Because he's like, now I got this apartment, it's yours if you want it. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, I'll at least check it out.
But Greg wasn't so sure. So before the aspiring actor fully committed to moving in with this, well, random oddball from acting school, he suggested a short 2-day trip to check if they would be good roommates. A choice that almost instantly proved valuable.
Anyway, how is your sex life?
First of all, we have only, at the time when he moved in, was only one bed.
He takes a shower, he's singing Aladdin, A Whole New World, and I'm like, I could make this work.
An eye-opening introduction to the real Wiseau that would see really any sane person packing their bags and going straight back to San Francisco. But Sestero felt differently. He knew this opportunity, the cheap rent, a new location, and Tommy could be his chance to move towards the big leagues, leading him to make a shocking decision.
And then I ended up 18 days later, came back, moved in, and I swear I plugged in my fax recorder machine thing, because that's what we had back in the late 90s.
Yeah.
4 minutes later, I get a call from a great agent that I'd send my headshots to. It was almost like, boom, it was like things started happening that I didn't think were possible. And it was really all thanks to that chance Tommy gave me.
And Greg wasn't the only one reaping the rewards, as Tommy had also found his calling.
Well, I don't know so much influence, but also Citizen Kane, Orson Welles. I don't call it so much influence, but it did affect me a certain way.
You see, Wiseau had never been one to be inspired by other artists' work. He much preferred to develop ideas from his visions and experiences. Yet once he laid his eyes on the talented Mr. Ripley, he was hooked. So much so that Wiseau set himself a simple goal: adapt the film into a screenplay and make the next great Broadway show.
A long story short, I studied, the relationship, about being in a relationship.
You know what they say, love is blind.
Well, supposed to be play originally.
This personal attachment, alongside constant support from his roommate, made it seem like the now aspiring writer was potentially creating something legendary.
I'm telling you though, the original script that he wrote when we were roommates is just out of this world. I mean, if you get a few of your friends to read the roles and you read it out loud, you got a couple beers, it's one of the most amazing things I've ever read.
However, once his project was complete, Tommy had to send his play for review, never expecting what would happen next.
We were gonna do it as a play, and then it got torn apart, and then it changed. So
Wiseau was heartbroken. Not only had his work of art failed to get publication rights, but it had been ridiculed by those who evaluated it. They called the dialogue repetitive and saw way too many narrative flaws, a reaction that would cause any normal creative to just move on, learn more, and improve. But not Tommy. No, it actually gave him more motivation.
The reason I choose this because I think it was interesting, and again, the room is different cookie cutter from Hollywood.
If the industry was going to reject him, fine. He would just reject them. Therefore, armed with cash from his days of business, the visionary got to work.
I learned from when I started acting as well, directing and film study, that the more colors you have, the better.
Giving himself the role of scriptwriter and producer and director to ensure nobody could interfere with his masterpiece. A move that at first might seem shocking, but creatives often undertake multiple roles during movie production. Just not normally on their first feature film though. So surely this would only end one way, right? Not only that, but obviously Tommy's unique mindset could make production a nightmare for the crew and cast. And would you subscribe? Please? Thank you. The aspiring director looked to start production as quickly as possible and began by casting his 2 lead roles. But the film is based on a love triangle, so surely he should be looking for 3 actors? Well...
Actually, I prefer to be an actor because I can be in different situations. I can experience my feelings, emotion, be happy, express myself, and that's what I like.
Meaning Tommy was literally doing everything. Although it was clear that Wiseau was fully confident in his vision.
Vision is very important. Shakespeare would tell you the same thing. When he started writing, he has already vision. He knew already what he wanted to write.
I would say that being a director is much harder because you have to have a vision.
From the beginning of a project
to the end of a project. Otherwise, you don't have a project.
Others weren't, including the man who had stood by him for nearly half a decade now.
I'd read the script and I was like, this is beautiful. I will help you make it, but I probably won't be in this.
A decision that forced the director towards a more traditional search for actors.
Back in the day, you still had to submit your headshot, like with a stamp on it in the mail. So I submitted it, and supposedly there was like a stack of, headshots that he went through and called people in. That's how I got the audition.
Well, I like to work with everybody. I don't discriminate, I love it.
Therefore, with hundreds of headshots, Tommy tirelessly went through and selected those he thought would be the best. And although Wiseau lacked experience, he wasn't entirely stupid. He knew that he needed to host auditions to check these performers were up to standard, which initially looked like a smart move.
We would do like these improv scenes, kind of loosely based on what would actually be going on later in the actual script. Tommy would usually enter the scene in some way, either to like tell us we were doing great or like to give us like some kind of surprise that we should react to.
Yet it wouldn't be long before Wiseau's excitement and wacky personality began to shine through.
But at some point, Tommy brought in a prop gun without telling anyone, hey, I have a prop gun. It's totally fine. It's not a real gun. So he brandishes this, and I'm afraid of guns. And so everyone else is, and so all the actors are just sort of like, it stops. He's like, why do you guys stop? This is serious.
A bizarre incident that should have given the actors warning signs as to what this film would become. But this just wasn't the case.
People ask me all the time, like, did you know, like, what you were getting into, or like at one point did you feel over your head? To that I say, to a noob actress, like, I had no idea what was normal and what was not normal, and I didn't really have all this excess like experience to fuel questions like, this isn't right, what is going on, should this be happening, blah blah blah. I was just super excited to be there, it's like I had a seat at the table. I was gonna have some real, like...
You see, due to Tommy's casting methods, the director had attracted performers fresh out of school who lacked set experience. This, combined with Wiseau's strong work ethic,
like he went for it. Like every day is a struggle on a movie production, even if you have everything going for you, and it was just about the power of pushing through and making something.
But is it ever too much for you to be writing, producing,
Yeah,
I'm
workaholic. I love to work, and that's what people don't understand. It is tough. It's not easy, because you have to deal with any complexity. So you have to be aware of what's going on at the same time.
Eluded the actors into believing this project would be their breakthrough. However, Wiseau knew something was missing.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Sestero had been by his side for years now, and Tommy needed him to have a bigger part in this project. So although production was set to start in literally days, the director curated an offer that Greg simply couldn't refuse.
And then we're ready to make the movie. It's the night before filming. We're driving on Santa Monica Boulevard. He's like, you have to do this project. You have to play Mark. The biggest mistake you ever made, you don't play Mark. And I was like, something came over me, and I thought, hey, I'm going to be on set all day anyway, helping out. Maybe I should just do it. And then, of course, he could see he kind of had me, and he's like, well, we get you a new car. What about that? And I'm like, he's got me.
A bribe that Sestero had to accept, which as day one of production rolled around, left the duo in an awkward position.
Sure, but the big problem was somebody was already cast. So we're showing up the first day of filming.
Yeah.
And they're like, Mark's, Greg's going to do scenes as Mark. The other Mark and I were both doing the same scenes, and it lasted about an afternoon before everybody found out. So the first day was everything you'd expect.
However, little did Greg, the crew, and remaining cast know, this was just the start of what would become one of the worst and some of our best experiences of their lives. As Wiseau, again due to his lack of experience, had actually purchased his cameras. A huge financial error, as most directors, even at major studios, rent most of their equipment due to astronomical costs. Yet, this wasn't the most stupid decision when it came to gear.
We shot the room with 2 cameras. One of the camera was a 35mm camera, and the second was a HD, high definition camera. Why 2 cameras? Because at the time, I did not have sufficient information.
Why would you take the 35mm film and then make that HD if you already had the HD that you shot?
Because the director was attempting to shoot every scene on both film and digital. A choice that confused everyone. Yet, Tommy was adamant he could stick to the 40-day filming schedule despite these additional takes. Yet, just sticking to time constraints would quickly become a small concern.
I never got the whole script. I have multiple just little stapled 4 pages at a time. This is the scene you're doing, like, don't worry about the overarching character that you're working on, or like the plot, just don't worry about that.
I mean, you can't really call that acting. We're surviving that dialogue. When I was saying it, I was, just trying to just exist and do it justice. But there's a moment where I look off camera and I roll my eyes and shake my head, like, break character, saying this is just so ridiculous. Can't believe I'm here. It ended up in the film.
As with the days of shooting rapidly becoming weeks, the actors were struggling to get to grips with Tommy's directing style. However, Wiseau still believed that his leadership would ensure this project would be a masterpiece.
The script doesn't mean so much if you don't have the vision, number one.
Because a lot of people say script did not exist. To me, it's pretty insulting, like...
Therefore, to make sure his inexperienced cast could start to align with his correct vision, the director hired an acting coach to further educate his team. A choice that tragically only made things worse.
But Tommy thought that we needed an acting coach, but I would think most of her time was probably spent, petting me and like rubbing my back. It's gonna be fine,
And with the 40-day deadline now completely unachievable, things only continue to slide downhill.
And I really believe the way he interprets things, the way he thinks there's no one else out there like him. And I noticed that very early on.
I remember us all as actors being kind of huddled underneath the tent, the tent of like, this is where we go to console ourselves and be like, okay, I've been in the trenches and you've been in there too and you know what it's like and it's gonna be okay. Nobody's ever gonna see this.
Mistake after mistake after mistake that led Wiseau and the cast to become even more frustrated.
All the directors lose their temper, and I did too. To be honest with you, because you have a lot. You see, you directing, you do the casting. We changed the crew 4 times. It was reason for it,
Right.
People tried to temper my project. I say no, that's not what we wanted. See the door, go through the door, don't come back. It costs a lot of money because of the 2 format. It was a conflict of interest.
To put things into perspective, scenes were being changed left, right, and center. Tommy was constantly missing cues and destroying scenes. Members of the cast and crew were walking out on the daily. Things couldn't possibly get any worse, right?
We don't call sex scene, we call love scene.
Yeah. With an end in sight after nearly 4 months, these final scenes would ultimately become the true breaking point for everyone involved.
Like at first it was just like a PTSD kind of bond,
I'm only gonna have my shirt off. So, because Tommy was big on revealing a lot, and so I was like, pants stay on. He's like, oh sure, no problem. So yeah, the love scenes were still very, very painful to watch.
Everybody's very uncomfortable. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
So
therefore, you would think that even with the director ultimately thinking similar thoughts to his actors, Tommy would begin to see the flaws in his leadership. Right?
Greg Sestero made it seem in his book like a lot of the actors were very unhappy with you as a director.
No, contrary.
He made it seem like the cast and crew did not like your style of directing.
Well, I have a style, like I want the actors be there, the experience. And all these people, relate to the room. They did not have experience the way I see it,
Everything that you see.
An experience viewing the room was done meticulously and
with a lot of preparation.
Or not, as the actual final straw came when the film's editor, Eric Chase, was mandated by Wiseau to cut no footage, leading to major continuity errors and narrative issues.
I could do very fast pace, like every scene, let's say 20 seconds or 1 minute.
Sure.
And I'm stretching, so say, we'll see what happens.
So with this production being so bad, surely this mockery of a project would never find its way into the public domain.
I want 80% of Americans see The Room. That's the bottom line. 20% because it's outrated.
Tommy, his cast, and remaining crew have just arrived at the premiere of the director's masterpiece, The Room. But how on earth did this movie, after its woeful production, end up on the big screen?
as an American, I like to recommend to all Americans to see The Room at the theater at least twice.
The reason for it is because you cannot get it the first time.
You see, Wiseau was hell-bent on getting his work of art in front of as many people as possible. So much so that he submitted his project to both Paramount Studios and the Academy Awards to hopefully secure a multi-million-dollar distribution deal.
What did the Academy say when you submit The Room to the Academy Awards?
We have a screening, we have a Bay Area screening, and again, we have few screening when you submit it, and it's a certain requirements, protocol. They like it, but we didn't get a nomination, but I'm proud to be on the database. We follow all the instruction, and maybe next time. So
maybe.
As expected, maybe not. The director knew he had no chance at proving those that doubted him wrong if he didn't get this project into theatres. So he did the only logical to Tommy that is, option: self-funding a short cinema run. Therefore, with the cinema sold out and everybody loving their free CD soundtrack, everything seemed to be going perfectly until they actually had to watch the movie.
Now, when it came time for the premiere, Tommy had filled the theater with like 300 people. So I walk in there and then the logos come on and people are laughing. And I was like, oh no, now it's real. Now I can't like just turn it off and escape. And so the sex scene comes on and then people are like, you start to hear laughs, you start to hear groans, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna peace out and hang out in the lobby. So I walked out and went into the lobby. And people started coming out a few minutes later, just shaking their heads. And this one guy looked at his friend and he's like, dude, I'll never get hard again.
However, this was just the start, as after grossing only $1,900 in its first 2 weeks, and refunds costing the theaters thousands more, it was quickly decided that the Room cinema run was over.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
Yet, thanks to Tommy's hustle and mindset, this wasn't the only promotional trick the director had up his sleeve.
How you release it now, digital format, you know,
Oh, yeah.
you see, it's two different things. People don't even realize what was and what we do now.
Shortly after being rejected yet again by the mainstream, Wiseau began renting a billboard and followed this by rolling out The Room on DVD. And with digital video becoming increasingly more popular, this was surely a smart decision. But with the video release arguably becoming even less successful than the theatre run, what was Tommy's next idea to save his masterpiece? Or was this tragically the end for The Room?
We have regular screening, as you probably know,
Yeah.
and I have a Q&A, and we screened The Room, like I said, all over the world, worldwide.
The director realised his best option was to host smaller, more private screenings to promote his work of art. A final move that slowly but surely began to pay off, as a cult-like following that understood The Room began to form. And shockingly, this snowball effect reached a climax a couple of years later.
And then it wasn't until like 2009 that there was an Entertainment Weekly article that was released. And it talked about celebrity fans, it being studied in universities, the spoons, and like how much it had built up.
Marking the start of something insane.
And I think that's what's great about The Room is you're seeing something that you couldn't really find anywhere else because nobody thinks like him and nobody would have put this much energy into making a film without getting anybody else's opinion.
When I watched The Room, I said there is no doubt in my mind that Tommy Wiseau did not want to deal with the bull of corporations, of Hollywood, of production houses, of meh, and said, you know what? I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to write, I'm going to direct, I'm going to produce, and goddamn it, I have $6 million in Street Fashions USA money. So everybody else.
So many of the other movies that, you know, have similar followings, like they don't quite hit the symphony of, you know, those things that the Room does.
As with social media allowing The Room to finally reach the masses, the fan base began rapidly expanding, ultimately allowing Tommy to achieve his true goal, while continuing to dismiss those that don't have his vision.
I finished what I started, and I'm very happy that I have a lot of fans and friends who like to see The Room over and over again.
An arrogance that allowed Wiseau to go on and direct his first TV series Neighbours in 2015. Yet, it wasn't just the director reaping the rewards of The Room. No, as Sestero turned his life-altering on-set experience into a book, The Disaster Artist, which was later adapted into a film in 2018 and went on to be nominated for an Academy Award.
That happened in 2003, June 27th. I thought, The Room is done, okay, this part of my life is over, and we're here 15 years later talking about it. I don't think it's one of those things that I don't think will ever go away.
You know what else is seemingly not going away? The idea of YouTubers taking over Hollywood. So if you want to learn how this random film school dropout did just that, click the video on your screen right now.